Hello and welcome. In the last two units, we covered the major components of the strategic plan, mission, vision, and values on the one hand, and from there the strategic goals and objectives that derive from them. And we also gave an overview of the strategic planning process, which involves using your knowledge of your organization and the community it serves to create goals and objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-dependent, that is, smart. Today we're going to look at some of the tools organizations use to make sense of their own organization, their customers and stakeholders, and the world around them to help develop goals and objectives that will help them achieve their missions. The Balanced Scorecard is a management tool developed by Robert Kaplan and David Norton in the 1990s that provides an organization with a report that is a mixture of financial and non-financial information in concise summary format relating to and deriving from the chosen corporate strategy and focusing on key performance measures the organization selects to implement the strategy. It's gone through some changes and revisions over the years, but in its current form as a business management tool, it has the following key elements. First, it's comprised of 4 perspectives. Financial should be clear. What's the health of your bottom line? For corporations, the question is, are you making money? But for institutions such as libraries and museums, it may have more to do with budgets, donations, government funding, and so on. Similarly, library and museum customers are far more often referred to as patrons, so we'd want to know about satisfaction, visits, usage, and so on. Both corporate and public sector organizations must manage internal business processes such as efficiency, waste, adaptation to changing business conditions, and so on. And finally, is your organization learning and growing, keeping up with trends in tech? And what is your organization's culture? Next, what are your organization's strategic objectives? You'll see this term used in conjunction with a balanced scorecard planning process, but if it sounds a lot like SMART goals, it's probably not a coincidence. As currently conceived by most practitioners, the 4 perspectives are layered in the order presented on the previous slide, and the strategic priorities map to them. When you can show a cause and effect chain between the strategic priorities leading from learning and growth to financial outcomes, you've created what's known in balanced scorecard land as a strategy map, shown in the generic sample shown in this slide. Once you know what your strategic objectives are, you need to identify specific measurements you'll use to determine whether your goals are being met. The measures you identify that you will track are called the Key Performance Indicators, or KPIs, and this is fundamental to the scorecard. For example, if one of the library's goals were to increase the public's exposure to the resources of the library, then one key performance indicator might be increased circulation, and that might have a target value attached to it of, say, 30%. In institutions where knowledge management systems are sophisticated enough and key performance indicators are trackable, so-called dashboards can be created for the individual managers to see how well they're doing in real time. In any case, the balanced scorecard system can be used to create real scorecards, as this illustration from Purdue shows. If you use the balanced scorecard as a management tool, then it may in fact become your strategic plan, and it looks kind of like this. Measures and targets are used to generate ideas for initiatives, which are the programs and projects that serve to improve the key performance indicator scores. The strategy map is the plan, and the scorecard is the measure of success. In other cases, however, the balanced scorecard methodology is used not so much as the management plan, but as a strategic planning tool. Here, for example, is a balanced scorecard strategy map from Wesleyan. Careful examination shows they have used the balanced scorecard as a planning tool without strictly adhering to the causal requirements of the standard model, as the balanced scorecard allows some flexibility in organizing perspectives and objectives. The image was not included in our final plan. One of the readings, The Impact of the Balanced Scorecard in Libraries, discusses how libraries have used the balanced scorecard in management and planning. Another issue is in the development and selection of key performance indicators for libraries. There is, in fact, an ISO standard that contains an enumerated list you can buy, and there are several books containing a collection of indicators that you can reference, or you can develop your own. There are also books you can use that will help you implement balanced scorecard in a library situation. A free one you can download is listed in the module plan. I'll just close this discussion on the balanced scorecard by saying that in one form or another, it is one of the most common management tools in use today, and many public and private sector organizations, as well as corporations, put it to use. SWOT, as I'm sure most of you know, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Although occasionally credited to Albert Humphrey, the origin of SWOT analysis is unknown from what I can tell. SWOT is usually used to help determine the feasibility of goals and objectives. That is, given a goal and related objective or plan for action, is it realistic to expect that we can expect a positive outcome given the forces supporting and opposing it? These forces are usually placed in a matrix like the one shown in the slide, with helpful forces in the left, harmful forces in the right, those of internal origin in the top, and those of external origin in the bottom row. It's occasionally argued that threats can come from within, but the counter-argument is that internal threats are in fact weaknesses, so we won't go there. Do note, though, that the SWOT is almost always presented in this chart format. This limits the text that goes in the chart, but there's often an expanded discussion of the individual elements following the chart. For libraries, the American Library Association suggests a few areas you should investigate internally for strengths and weaknesses. And you can probably extend these to other organizations such as museums, historical societies, and other information organizations. There is also statistical information available on libraries and museums that will allow you to compare your organization with other organizations of similar size and purpose. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. Your best bet is to read the planning documents of other organizations similar to yours and see what they've included. And of course, you know your organization the best. Most planning processes include input from representatives from all departments. And unless this is a startup, you'll have prior plans to help you. Don't forget to include outside perspectives as well. Your stakeholders, including your customers or patrons, will have some feedback on your internal strengths and weaknesses, which is different from your review of external forces. The environmental scan is the process you use to look at factors external to your organization that may have an impact on goals and objectives. The environmental scan looks to the future and the impact of future trends and potential changes taking place that may impact your organization, as well as present issues and problems. When used for strategic planning, look at your organization's vision for the next 3 to 5 years. The question arises what to scan and what to look for. We'll look first at what to scan. There are several different ways of organizing the external environment, and these are often presented as tools of strategic planning by themselves. Each organization needs to determine what the environment is that needs to be scanned. There are a few common systems. One well-known system is PEST, or sometimes PESTLE, and another is STEEP, perhaps just another way of saying the same thing. Now we look at the scanning process. Here are some thoughts from one of your supplementary resources. Seek signs of change. Look for signals of potential events on the horizon. Look for forecasts of experts. Look for indirect effects. It's important to remember that many trends or events that do not have direct implications for your institution may have second or third order effects. Be aware that there are a few guidelines on how to do scanning. Write abstracts. As for sources of information, most of you are librarians, and you'll know how to do research. But be careful not to limit yourself to just the academic, especially when it comes to the technological and political facets. These areas change much faster than academic publishing cycles can keep up with, so cast your net broadly. For libraries, one of the most significant environmental scans was completed in 2003 by OCLC, titled Pattern Recognition: What Haven't You Noticed Lately? It states, the purpose of the report is to identify and describe issues and trends that are impacting and will impact OCLC libraries, museums, archives, and other allied organizations positively and negatively. The scope of the report is the social, political, economic, and technological spheres in which all these organizations and their community of users operate. It attempts to identify the main patterns in the information landscape and suggests some implications for its future. It came at a time when Google became ubiquitous and for many seemed to pose a serious threat to libraries and their core mission. So OCLC undertook a significant and far-reaching environmental scan so that libraries, archives, and museums could use the findings to help guide their strategic planning and evaluate their goals and objectives in the face of rapid technological, economic, and social change. Later in 2011, OCLC and ACRL conducted an environmental scan for academic libraries in the face of changing landscape of budget threats, declining face-to-face enrollment, pressure on academic models of assessment and accountability, tenure, political issues, technology including the internet, demographics, scholarly communication, and the future of the profession. So we've gone into some detail on the most prevalent tools used today to inform strategic planning in organizations both public and private, as well as in non-governmental organizations, in education and cultural heritage, and nonprofit memory institutions such as libraries, archives, and museums. The Balanced Scorecard and SWOT are tools that take a look at organizations from the inside. The Balanced Scorecard is a management tool that can be thoroughly embedded in an organization as a process, or it's a planning tool that can be used to inform the strategic planning process. An important component of the Balanced Scorecard is the use of key performance indicators, which are used to measure how well initiatives improve outcomes. The selection and choice of the right KPIs is both critical and difficult. Key performance indicators can also be used as performance metrics for evaluation outside the Balanced Scorecard system. For libraries, there are books listing KPIs for various areas of librarianship, and there's an ISO standard one can purchase. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or SWOT, similarly is a widely used system and exercise to evaluate the potential viability of goals and objectives in the face of internal change and uncertainty. There's no one single way to execute either of these tools in a planning environment. The environmental scan is a process that measures the potential impact of external forces, positive and negative, across several factors that can impact the goals and objectives of the organization's strategic plan. The primary difference between the SWOT and the environmental scan is that the SWOT focuses mostly on internal strengths and weaknesses that weaken or embolden goals and objectives. The environmental scan seeks to identify outside forces, either to proactively react to external threats before they harm the organization, or to identify and take advantage of potential opportunities that strengthen the organization's mission, vision, and strategic objectives. While similar in intent, the two employ different methods and techniques to achieve success. This unit's readings highlight some of the strategies you can consider in deploying some of these tools. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the readings and have fun developing some of your own key performance indicators.